Nelson Balido, a Border Commerce Security Council chairman at Balido and Associates, is joining us. Nelson Balido, welcome.
Great to be with you, Betsy, John, once again.
Great. Good, yeah, good to see you again. So, Nelson, I guess the first question is, why dueling visits to the border on the same day? What's the message to all Americans, since we're all affected by the chaos at the border?
Well, I think it's another dog and pony show. The truth is when Biden comes to the border, or any administration official comes to the border, it's almost like they're taking a tour, right? I always say, unless you can go see, you can go see what's happening. Well, we all know what's happening. But unless you're coming with a policy change, something to change the aspect of what's happening on the border, all you're doing is just, again, coming and saluting the troops and getting out there and just checking the box. Ultimately, it does absolutely nothing to change the demographics or what's happening on the border.
Well, I suspect that Donald Trump is going to be doing more than checking the box, because he's choosing to go to Eagle Pass, right, where Greg Abbott, governor of Texas, has really laid down the line. He's rolling out the razor wire to stop the migrants from coming in as fast as the feds are cutting down that wire and helping the migrants step across the border. So tell us what you think Trump might be doing today.
Well, certainly. Well, Trump's going to go where the heaviest area right now, where mostly crossings are happening, where the Rio Grande Valley, where Biden is going, used to be the case. The cartels have shifted their strategy into a more central Texas border region entry location, basically because it's easier to get to based on the different factors of the cartels moving people within Mexico. Donald Trump's going to talk about overall border security, stopping the immigrant population. But I think what we need to do, and what we're not seeing, is we need to separate the drugs and the immigration. In other words, we need to define what is border security. When we say stop everything, what does that mean? Because we got to remember that there is Mexico and Canada are our number one, number two trading partners for the United States. And we're talking about almost 30,000 trucks flowing over the border with goods and services that can't be interrupted over the ports of entries. So when you're talking $1 billion an hour, is basically what's flowing over a day over the border. It is a huge amount of what's happening. And now, so when we look at separating, we need to have a legal way of coming into this country, which we have now, and it needs to be enforced. I think Trump's going to talk about enforcement and how he's going to get there. And Biden's going to talk about, well, we all know what Biden's going to talk about. It's just the same old thing. Blame the Republicans for what's happening. Blame the Republicans for not passing a supposed bad border bill that we talked about a few weeks ago. And unfortunately, that's just not going to cut it for the American people. I think Trump's going to be able to lay down a plan, go back to policies that he had, and including, I think, holding Mexico accountable like he did before.
Yeah.
What we did before is he said, if you're not going to control the population going over this border, we're going to start putting a tariff on everything that crosses over the border, a 15% tariff. That got people's attention. All of a sudden, we started getting the Remain in Mexico. We started getting more enforcement, and we started getting more help. But in Mexico, unfortunately, when you have a large percentage of the population or the country that is run by criminal elements, well, the unfortunate thing is this is what you have. We need to have some real intervention, and I hope Donald Trump will talk about real intervention in Mexico and not helping their government, but also pressuring their government to ensure they're doing the right thing.
Yeah, I think you're right, Nelson. The thing is that Trump is going to do what he's always done. Talk about the issues, the people crossing the border, breaking the law. He's going to talk about the drugs that are coming over the border. He's going to talk about the sex trafficking. And look, he's going to point out the frustration of every border city, every border state. And when I say that, it's all around the country. Why? Because everyone is feeling the burden of the border coming into their town. Meanwhile, Biden, on the other hand, is going there because he's in hot water politically, and he's going to talk about we're a compassionate country, which we are. He's going to talk about the Republicans have my hands tied. He's going there crying like a victim, but I think is going to fall short. Why? Because I don't think the American people can be fooled. What's your opinion?
Well, look, every state is a border state at this point. You say, John. I mean, every state is getting an influx of immigrants like they've never seen before. New York, Michigan, Florida, even the heartland of America is getting punched. I'll say you're right. Biden's going to go crying, say blame the Republicans, say we're compassionate, and like you said, we're absolutely compassionate. No one's against immigration here. We're against illegal immigration.
Yes.
There is a way to enter this country. We have hundreds of thousands of work visas that absolutely go unclaimed every year, and they can be used. These are things that need to be enforced. And what Trump's going to talk about is enforcement. We don't need new laws. We don't need new bills. We need to be able to enforce what's on the books right now and ensure that everyone gets a turn. There's in an orderly fashion. The issue of what's happening is every time someone crosses, every time someone sends money back and funds this human trafficking effort, it's only solidifying the stature of these cartels. And you know what? They don't have to go through RFP processes. They don't have to have any laws to follow. They do whatever they want to do to the tunes of billions of dollars that's flowing into their coffers every year because we're not stopping it. And these other countries we're not holding them accountable.
Let's talk about the criminals that are coming in. President Biden has imposed a new rule called paroling people from Venezuela and several other South American countries. Paroling means they're allowed in even though they're illegal, and you can't do any kind of background check because Venezuela doesn't even provide any information. So we're looking at a killer who just killed Laken Riley in Georgia, the young nursing student. He came from Venezuela. He was paroled in, given a bus ticket to New York. And then finally he ended up in Georgia and killed this young woman. And the question I have is, you say we don't need new laws, but why can't we stop this paroling that allows South American countries like Venezuela to empty their prisons, send the professional killers north, right? They're coming into our cities, gangs, MS-13, El Tren de Aragua. These are people covered in tattoos that commemorate how many people they've killed, how vicious they are, and they are now on the streets of our cities. Talk to us about that.
Betsy, I'll tell you, so you have a lot of countries, especially Nicaragua, Cuba, Venezuela, and others that do not share their information with the U.S. government. These people are taught what to say. They know what to say when they get here, when they talk to the NGOs and the officers to let them parole. Now, that is the problem right now, is this paroling, right?
Yes.
Because Venezuela does not want to accept when we return flights back to or return flights back to their home countries. You know, we want to negotiate them about oil and gas and all these other things. However, we forget that they're not following the rules. There, you have a dictator government there. You have a socialist regime that absolutely is if he can export his criminal element and export his problems,
yes,
that's exactly what's happening. And we're seeing that along our cities. Now, I will tell you that less than 0.5% ours is criminal element, but it's still so many people are crossing over the border on a monthly basis to the tune of almost 200,000 that even if 1,000 people, 1,500 people that are this criminal element is too much. The other thing I will tell you,
why can't we just stop them?
Border Patrol and others,
say no more Venezuelans. No more Venezuelans. Why can't we just say no more Venezuelans paroled into the U.S.?
Betsy, we can say that about any country we want to. It's enforcing the law and ensuring that we have background checks on everyone. If not, you can't come over. These are things that can happen and absolutely can happen right away. The question is, do we have a will to do it?
Right.
And I don't think we do. We
We
don't
didn't
have
hear
true.
anything from Joe Biden on that. When he was asked about the killing of Laken Riley, he said, well, we'll let the law enforcement people decide if he's guilty. He could have said, no more paroling Venezuelans into the United States. That's what he could have said.
It's like I said, we don't need anything new. We can enforce the law right now. The president has the rule-making authority right now. Stop the hemorrhage. And like I said, we need to stop putting Band-Aids on something that we need major surgery for. And this is what they're doing, putting Band-Aids on something that we need to have something stopped immediately.
But Nelson, the thing is that we have to address the whole pipeline. I agree with you. We have to enforce the law, and we also have to stop the flow of tax dollar money going to the NGOs, non-governmental organizations that are playing shepherd, bringing these people from all over the world to breach our southern border. And we have to, like you said, enforce our laws at the southern border, but also around the country. It's the entire pipeline. In addition to forcing the law, Nelson, what we also have to do is undo some of the laws that are providing protections to these people who are violating our laws again, because the first law that they violated is coming into the country illegally. Then they're committing all types of crimes in our cities, in our states. And some of these cities and states are sanctuary cities, sanctuary states that are protecting these individuals. And we see in the case of Laken Riley, she would have been alive if laws like in New York City that didn't prohibit NYPD from working with ICE, because this man, this vicious person should have been deported.
That's right.
Should have been deported. And I think we're going to see, if Trump gets in the office, we're going to see a lot of that more happening throughout the country. Because you got to remember, so these folks come in paroled, and they're given a telephone many of the cases, and they're given a date to appear in court. Over 85% of these people don't appear in court. So what happens? They become illegal. So now if you get stopped, you commit a crime, you do whatever we put in place, you have now a warrant for your arrest. Those folks are going to start coming due literally this year and next year, because some of these people have been in the country 3 to 4 years already. So their time to go to court is now. They're not appearing. Now they become visa overstays or parolees that have been overstayed and become a big problem to the United States. But that also gives us the ability to arrest them, also the ability to deport them.
Nelson Balido, thank you so much for all the information you've provided. You know, I got a little emotional. I'm really reacting like Laken Riley's mother, because my girls are that age. It could have happened to them.
Again, thank you, Nelson.
Good to see you guys. Thank you again.